Can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right, sounds good. I think this is I think this is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, Zygarde, Incin, Zygarde. Okay. Uh, yeah, and then we can turn this up, which means we can hear each other more. I think.
Word. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay.
Sounds good. Um,
Are we waiting on the go ahead from the announcer to tell them they can start?
I believe so. So,
Word.
welcome to Knoxville Regionals 2020, still in Ultra Series. For round one, we will have Jeremy Rodrigues versus Nate Innocenti. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see everything that we're going to get out of both of these players. Kicking off this tournament um, kind of set the tone for the day, right? Should we go ahead and go over the Pokemon that we're going to be seeing from these two guys while we wait for the announcement for them to go ahead and start?
Yeah, sure. On Jeremy's side, we've got Salamence, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Groudon, Xerneas, and Cresselia. It's interesting to see Cresselia back again in VGC since we haven't seen it in a few years, right?
Right, so Cresselia was a big pick, even up in the 2016 meta, which was also a restricted format like this. But with the popularity of Lunala, um, you've got Lunala and Yveltal both kind of just really threatening on Cresselia, and there's other Pokemon that kind of do its role a little bit better right now. So it's a little bit of an unexpected pick that we haven't seen too much of this season. So I'm excited to see how Jeremy chooses to use it today.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see that. And then on Nate's side, we see Zygarde come back from Moon Series, Incineroar, Groudon, Lantern, Tapu Fini, and Shedinja.
Yeah, so everybody wants to talk about Lantern, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to try and get into Nate's head here. Obviously he built the team. That Lantern and Shedinja, if I'm facing that in team preview, I'm definitely worried about potential soak shenanigans. We'll see if that's the move, and if it is, just looking at Jeremy's team, if that soak does manage to fire off, like I don't see a way for him to hit a soak Shedinja.
I don't see one either.
Maybe he could surprise us. We'll see. Obviously, Cresselia could be carrying toxic. Of course, that's a thing that
Yeah, that's very true.
it's hard to say. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what these players bring us today.
Especially seeing Zygarde come back again is very, very cool to see. Especially for me, since I ran Zygarde a lot in Sun Series and Moon Series. It was very nice to see it come back. I'm wondering if it's going to be holding the Misty Seed like we saw in the Moon Series and Sun Series, where it gets the special defense boost and then just transforms into a giant monster.
Right. Yeah. So in previous formats, like you were saying, this. Do they know that they're allowed to start?
I'm going to go tell them right now.
Sounds good. All right, so we did get the go ahead from the judge that players can start. We're kind of working out some of the kinks, so we had to let our players know that it was okay for them to start their battle as well. And so it looks like we are jumping into battle now, and Jared's coming right back to join me back at the table.
Uh, Sounds good. Well, I'm just gonna fix the time real quick. 50 minutes start. Sounds good. Well, it's gonna be again. The Zygarde is gonna be interesting to see, considering the matchup. As we see, I don't know what really
Yeah,
to
so we've
say.
talked about these Pokemon that both players are running. Again, though, on the left side of your screen, you've got Jeremy's team that consists of Salamence, Incineroar, Xerneas, Tapu Fini, Groudon, and Cresselia. And on the right, obviously, Nate's team consisting of Zygarde, Groudon, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Lantern, and Shedinja. Shedinja, we talked about it briefly before hopping into team preview.
Yeah.
we talked about Shedinja briefly before hopping into team preview. It's a Pokemon that has been irritating a lot of players
Yeah,
lately, just because you know it's
it's
so
really hard to deal
frustrating to
with.
face. If you can't hit it super effectively, and that coupled with the fact that in Gen 7 it was given access to Ally Switch, which can just make it a super irritating Pokemon to play against. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll see if Nate has what it takes to really pilot a Shedinja, to a good finish.
Hmm.
Because as irritating as it is and as frustrating as it is to play against, it does take a
A lot of
considerable amount of
skill.
skill to utilize properly because you don't have a lot of HP to work with the Shedinja.
You only have the 1 HP to deal with, and as we see both of them locking in at the very last second, I do want to note that Nate has been doing well at his locals with this team. I did see it on Twitter and on the updates, and I saw the lantern and the shed engine, and I immediately thought Soak. So I wonder if it's the same thing, if it's going to be Soak still, or if it was Soak.
And so
Uh,
that's something that you really want to account for, right? When a player is doing well with a team consistently, that's just a good sign that they're able to, they know their team in and out and exactly how
mhm.
to use it. So here on turn one, we have Jeremy leading with Salamence and Xerneas. Meanwhile, Nate is slightly more passive, leading with Tapu Fini and Incineroar.
Yeah. Tapu Fini and Incineroar has been typically a really good lead with the. Sorry guys. There we go. All right, there we go. It's all fixed. Sorry guys. But like you were saying, Incineroar Tapu Fini has been a really good lead in all of Moon series, especially with the Zygarde team. It allows you to pivot a lot. It allows you to adjust what you need to do for the beginning of the game, setting up your end goal. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say here. Except the Tapu Fini and Incineroar is really good. We saw Alex Aran do really well with that lead in St. Louis with the Zygarde.
Yeah, so this Icy Wind coming out from Tapu Fini is actually going to be really important. Obviously, that fake out preventing Xerneas from being able to go for a Geomancy right now. So now both of Jeremy's Pokemon are at -1, and the Icy Wind actually does respectable damage to the Salamence thanks to being, a 4-time super effective attack despite the low base power. And yeah, so like you were saying, this Tapu Fini Incineroar lead is really good because it gives you a lot of options. Like we just saw here, Nate's going with some speed control, really kind of getting out in front. So we do see Salamence going first, even after taking one Icy Wind, and opting for a Hyper Voice, meaning that this is a mixed set, but it does allow the Salamence to... it kind of accomplishes two things, right? It ignores that Intimidate drop from the Incineroar, and it prevents Salamence from taking any recoil damage, which is really critical here, that we see that Salamence is surviving with 6 HP, and Moonblast does connect with Tapu Fini for the KO.
Now I'm wondering here if the goal for Nate, if his Tapu Fini did get knocked out, is to bring in Lantern if he does have it in the back, and just switch out the Incineroar into the Shedinja, so if that is what he has in the back.
Yeah, if that's what Nate has in the back, it would also mean he didn't bring either of his restricteds to this battle, which
He might not
you
have
know,
to.
if you don't need them, you don't need them. Of course, if he did see that. All right, so we do see the Groudon coming out here. Gonna go ahead and Primal Revert. Now this puts us in an interesting situation, right? Because if these Groudons speed tie, like this next turn can play out very differently depending on which Groudon is faster. So we can kind of, who trained their Groudon to be faster here could
You
be
have
very
to remember
important.
that Tailwind is up right now.
No, Tailwind's not up because the Salamence has gone for Double Edge and then Hyper Voice.
Oh, that's right.
So it has taken 2 Icy Winds. However, both of the Groudons are at full speed,
Yeah.
just coming in. So another thing that I really like seeing here was Jeremy was respecting the roar on Nate's side of the field. He didn't go for a Geomancy. Instead, he went straight on the offense, going for that Moonblast to pick up the KO onto Tapu Fini. And I definitely think that paid off for him, because now he still has the threat of a potential Geomancy, on this next, when he gets a chance to with his Xerneas.
I totally agree. And we do see Nate's Groudon is a special variant. Probably one of the faster variants too, as we saw previously in the season. They're typically faster and more aggressive. So I wonder if Jeremy knew that in any way before coming to this battle.
Yeah, so, and especially if this is a, if this is a super fast Groudon, depending on how fast this Xerneas is, Xerneas doesn't want to take an eruption, from full HP Groudon in the sun before getting a Geomancy up.
Exactly.
That's still going to deal a lot of damage. But we do see the Xerneas is faster than the Groudon, getting a Geomancy up. So if this is a fully special Groudon, Xerneas does have that protection from the
eruption and earth power.
Yeah.
We do see Shedinja come back and or come to the battle, which is an interesting choice, seeing that Salamence and Groudon are super effective. And I wonder if he was planning on trying to use Tapu Fini to soak his Shedinja in this matchup, but
this is a big heal pulse. So Xerneas, this turn is such a good turn for Jeremy, right? He got his Xerneas Geomancied. He gets this heal pulse off onto Xerneas, so he almost gets Geomancy completely unpunished here.
Yeah.
He does still have to find a way to deal with Shedinja, but we do know he has Pokemon in the back that can hit Shedinja for super effective damage, since it has not been soaked.
And even if it does have Ally Switch, the Salamence is able to hit it with both targets.
The Hyper Voice is not going to worry about, picking a target. So yeah, Jeremy kind of in the driver's seat. It's going to be interesting to see, what Nate can do. Obviously, he does, he's still got a Groudon.
Yeah. We don't know if it's a special or the physical variant.
Yeah, so if this is a mixed Groudon and he can start firing off some Precipice Blades or something, ignore that special defense boost. But Nate opting to protect here, gonna work with just the Shedinja, which, to me, that's a fair way to play, right? Because right now, nothing that Jeremy has on the field can threaten Shedinja. So, why not get this free damage while I can?
Exactly.
It's a perfectly fair way to go about this.
I'm also wondering if it does have Ally Switch, as we saw the Moonblast go straight into the Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, so the Dazzling Gleam went into a Protect and didn't hit the Shedinja, so that's not a big deal ultimately. So we do see Nate switching out his Groudon. That is going to be Incineroar coming back in here.
Just protecting his Groudon, which is I think a overall smart move. It allows him to come back in and maybe threaten a fake out or a possible roar if he can.
But Jeremy just super punishes that switch with the Moonblast into what was the Groudon slot, picking up the KO onto the Incineroar as it comes in. This is looking good for Jeremy right now.
Yeah.
He's got his boosted Xerneas isn't going to be able to hit that Shedinja. Groudon resists its attacks.
Yeah.
But you've still got a Salamence and you've still got a Groudon in the back, so as long as he can get some damage off here,
he'll be fine.
Just set himself up to come in with the back two Pokemon and kind of clean up the game. We have not seen if the Shedinja has
Shadow Sneak.
Shadow Sneak. That could be a good way for Nate to pick off the last 6 HP on that Salamence when it comes back in.
Exactly.
But that's not going to help him deal with a Groudon.
Yeah.
So
he can't do much against that huge threat to the Shedinja.
Yeah, and so I do like here how Jeremy is going for these Dazzling Gleams just to kind of chip away at the Groudon, because he doesn't he doesn't need to KO it right this second, right?
Exactly.
And so this Dazzling Gleam is just a little bit safer because, as we've been saying, Ally Switch is such an irritating thing for Shedinja to be doing. Uh, so he's just playing it safe. He's like, yeah, even if you Ally Switch, I'm going to get some chip damage, kind of start chipping down, get you in range to get KO'd.
Yeah. As we see, Groudon goes for the Protect for the turn.
Yeah, so that's actually a double.
And then
But it works out for Nate here, he baits out the Protect from Jeremy's Groudon. So this is actually, it's pretty important, right?
oh, the Toxic Miss on the Xerneas.
Yeah,
That
so-
would have been a really good way to chip away at that bulky wall that we see on Jeremy's side, but 90% accuracy can really hurt sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? The good news is for Nate, if he's able to KO these other Pokemon of Jeremy's, the Xerneas can't touch it. So he has plenty of opportunities to click that
Yeah.
to click that toxic button.
Yeah.
So we do see Moonblast now connecting with the Groudon. Even a resisted hit, that does a lot of damage. That's almost 70% and gets a
roughly
special
around.
attack drop.
You do see the Earth Power actually going to the Xerneas, not that Groudon slot, as Jeremy was trying to bait out. And we see the Shadow Claw go into the Salamence, knocking it out. Now here, we might actually see a fighting chance from Nate. Maybe if he ally switches or something like that and Dazzling Gleam doesn't pick up the knockout, we might see a knockout on Jeremy's.
Yeah, so, I
Groudon.
mean, Nate's not out of it here, right? He does have an out that he can play to. If he gets the, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. He
Yeah.
needs to correctly call what Jeremy's attacking. He needs to crit Jeremy's Groudon with Earth Power, and he needs his Groudon to go faster. So I think Nate realizing, it's not worth it. I don't want to give away any information. I want
Exactly.
Jeremy to still wonder, do I have Ally Switch? I want him to wonder, do I have Shadow Sneak?
Mhm.
So I think that's a good plan from Nate there to preserve his information and go back to the drawing board into game 2.
Exactly, it's the
So-
information game.
Yeah. So we do see Jeremy taking game 1. So what did you see in that match? If you're if you're playing for either one of these players, how are you approaching game 2 knowing what you know now?
Well, as Nate, I would think, seeing that Jeremy didn't really have a way to deal with the Shedinja, I feel like, as Nate, I would try to prioritize trying to get that soak off into the Shedinja if I could.
Yeah, so, again, unless there's something funny on Jeremy's team, which we definitely could not put past him, right? That soaking Shedinja and then playing the long game definitely seems, like the safe option. So,
Yeah. We did see Nate bring the Tapu Fini, but not the Lantern. I wonder if Lantern is Scarf, because it's just one of those mons that I feel like would be Scarfed. Fast Soaker. Because the Tapu Fini wasn't Scarfed, that we could tell. So I'm not sure.
yeah, so I do think, if I'm Nate, I'm going to have to figure out a way to deal with that Tapu Fini faster, right? Because it got 2 heal pulses into Jeremy's Xerneas, and that's just something that, letting the Xerneas get boosted unpunished is bad. Letting the Xerneas stay at almost full health
was
after
really
boosting
bad.
for several turns is also really bad. And so that's probably going to be, in my mind, that's going to be Nate's biggest hurdle. And if Jeremy can do that again, or find a way to, keep that Xerneas in a commanding position like he did, he can find himself, coming out of this match,
Really well.
starting the tournament off 1-0. So do you see Jeremy going with a
Xerneas
Xerneas?
and Incineroar late this time. And we do see Nate switch it up too with the Groudon Incineroar too. It's very interesting. Let's see how fast each Incineroar is. It looks like Nate's Incineroar is actually faster, or could be a potential speed tie.
Yeah, so this is actually, it's a pretty decent lead for Nate right now. His Groudon is not affected by Jeremy's Incineroar's Intimidate. It's just gonna, it's like, yeah, I'm intimidated. I'm still gonna click Earth Power. It's not reduced at all. And so if that Incineroar is faster and it's not a speed tie, which is hard to say, we haven't seen these, the Incineroar mirror much in this match, so we don't know for sure. And of course, Jeremy's got to be careful, right? Because Nate he did reveal Roar last game, so
Exactly.
Jeremy can't just willy-nilly click Geomancy. That could wind up getting pretty punished. Be punished pretty hard.
And we haven't seen the fourth move on Groudon either, so it could be P-Blades, it could be Roar too. Just being extra
some people
prepared
have used Roar Groudon, which is a decent check. If you're like, yeah, if a Xerneas sets up, it can sweep me pretty easy. I need to make sure I prevent that. That's not a bad move to include there.
Exactly. I believe Roar Groudon did really well at UIC, first or second. I can't remember exactly at the moment, but it did do really well. It definitely did really well.
Alright, so we do see Xerneas going for a Protect as Groudon goes for an Eruption. Nate's Incineroar
Just goes
went for the fake out into the Xerneas Protect, and Jeremy going for a U-turn here gives himself an option to pivot, bring in something maybe a little more beneficial for the two Pokemon he sees on the screen right now.
Maybe his own Groudon by chance? No, but we do see the Salamence come out instead. Very good. It does get the Intimidate off onto the Incineroar, and it can pressure with like a Double Edge and a Moonblast right into the Incineroar to knock it out if Jeremy is afraid of the Roar.
Right. So, if Jeremy can pick up the KO on this Incineroar and now not have to worry about a Roar, that clears up his way of getting to the dub in this game. He's like, all right, if I can prevent a Roar and click Geomancy, if he's got that Tapu Fini in the back to give him some heal pulses too to keep that Xerneas healthy, that could be the end game he's trying to look for.
We do see make a Salamence Mega Evolve and just opt for the Hyper Voice instead of what I anticipated to be the Double Edge.
Yeah, so the Hyper Voice plus Moonblast coming into the Groudon slot here.
That's interesting.
As we do see Hidden Power. Oh man,
Hidden Power Ice, and it will pick up the knockout on the Salamence. I guess Jeremy kind of knew.
So there you have it. If you wanted to know Nate's fourth move on his Groudon, it is Hidden Power Ice. So what a KO there!
Yeah, it came out of nowhere essentially. Typically Groudon doesn't have anything to check Salamence with,
right?
So that inclusion of the Hidden Power Ice was a really good idea.
So what a good tech. That's a good KO for Nate to pick up.
Yeah.
So the one thing here, Nate did roar out the Xerneas last turn, but again, Jeremy, like we saw in game 1, he didn't go for a Geomancy. He's keeping that for a later game. So, yeah, Jeremy lost to Salamence here, but it's not a bad turn for him, right? Because now he's back in a position where he has Incineroar and Xerneas on the field. He's got fake out pressure. Now's the time.
Set up and fake out Geomancy.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it turn one, but now it's turn 2, and he's got an opportunity to go for it.
Exactly.
So
it's later in the game. He's able to do that, and we do see Zygarde come out in front of that Xerneas.
Oh wow,
That's
this is
interesting.
This is really important. This Aura Break Zygarde. It's not the power construct. So that's essentially gonna have the damage that Xerneas is doing.
And then if we do see Misty Seed too, it's just Xerneas
so
will not be able to touch. And we do see Misty Seed
so
activate.
even a Geomantied Xerneas, you're used to the damage calcs of, Moonblast at +2
doing
with
60% to 100. But now it's going to be the reverse.
Exactly, because the Fairy Aura is going to be reversed, so instead of providing a 30% boost, it's a 30% drop, which is a significant difference when you're, the damage that you're used to. So yeah, this this Xerneas did get boosted, but at what cost? You know,
Yeah.
like
And we do possibly have a haste threat from Tapu Fini if Nate really does not like that.
right. So yes, you know, Zygarde does take super effective damage from fairy moves, but between the Misty Seed boost and the Aura Break, it's able to mitigate some of the damage that it would be taking. So I really like that double switch there. You know, Nate saw, I have nothing to prevent this fake out Geomancy that's incoming. How can I position myself to make this not as punishing to me as it was last game?
Exactly. Yeah, he recognized it, and he's taking advantage of it now with the Aura Break versus what we typically see is Power Construct. Back in the Moon series with Solgaleo by its side to take care of the Xerneas so it didn't have to have Aura Break.
Right.
But now we see Aura Break come out, not afraid of that Xerneas anymore. But we do see Groudon come out on Jeremy's side, backing up Xerneas, probably hitting it physically since Xerneas can't really hit it specially. Tapu Fini could also just set up a light screen and a heal pulse.
Yeah, so, I mean, Tapu Fini has a lot of options here, right? We do see the Moonblast coming out from Xerneas into Zygarde, and that
Wow.
deals actually
Still
a
does a
decent
rough-
chunk of
yeah.
damage. We do see the light screen up, and that's going to further mitigate the damage that
Zygarde's doing, or the Xerneas is doing. But we just see a coil from the Zygarde setup. I wonder if the Xerneas will be able to knock out either with like a Dazzling Gleam or a Moonblast at this point, especially being at +1 and light screen up. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
that'll be
so
able to do anything.
it's hard to say. You know, that Moonblast did, you know, what, 60,
60,
60 or
70%?
70%. So after the light screen reduction, I still think a Moonblast would pick it up. A Dazzling Gleam, though, I would definitely be skeptical.
Yeah.
So,
It does look like Jeremy is in a really good position
yeah.
still, despite the Aura Break coming out, and despite Nate being in the lead with 4 Pokemon versus
Right.
Jeremy's 3.
Because all Nate needs to do, or excuse me, all Jeremy needs to do is get this Zygarde off the field, and now all of a sudden his Xerneas is back at full strength.
Exactly.
So we do see Tapu Fini switching out in favor of this Incineroar. That was punished last game, but with light screen up, you know, maybe Incineroar's in a little bit better position to come in and eat a Moonblast if it has to.
Exactly.
But no, we do see the Dazzling Gleam come out.
Wondering if that's going to actually knock out the Incineroar or proc a berry if it has it.
Oh,
the crit.
Yeah, that crit is super unfortunate because with, you know, with the light screen, you know, he could have been in a good position, but with the Precipice Blades coming in after
That
the
is
Dazzling
true.
Gleam, you know, it's hard to say that it ultimately
would've
mattered
survived,
that
yeah.
much. So, it was a good thought by Nate. Unfortunately, just getting punished, you know, by those, you know, yeah, it was only one Dazzling Gleam, but it would have had to take both attacks to get onto the field.
Exactly. I wonder if it was Berry, if that was his thought, if I could survive a Moonblast or a Dazzling Gleam, eat my Berry, your Groudon's at -1, I survive, I get a Fake Out and possibly like 1,000 arrows off.
Right.
I'd be in a really good position still.
Yeah, so it's again not a bad thought. It was just really punished, and unfortunately, we're just not going to know if, you know, like that Dazzling Gleam plus -1.
Yeah.
So we do see the Dazzling Gleam connect
Just
with
pick up
the
the
Zygarde,
Zygarde.
and it does pick up the KO. And the Heal Pulse,
Yeah, the Heal Pulse missing its target.
yeah,
the Zygarde
because the
went
Zygarde
down.
went down. It's got to be frustrating if you're Nate. You know, you know, because he had options, and he got himself set up, but unfortunately the damage from the Xerneas was, you know, even after everything he'd done to mitigate the damage, it was just too much.
Yeah, the +2 Xerneas has just been so overwhelming for many teams that you've been seeing it do really, really well in
Right.
this season. Back in 2016 too, it just did really, really well, and a lot of people either couldn't stop it or they just countered it.
Yeah, so I mean, this match it just really highlights like how important it is to have answers. You know, just having a way to prevent the Geomancy isn't enough. You need to be able to handle it after it has Geomancied. And of course, you know, Jeremy has just played his Xerneas so well, you know, that he
Yeah.
kept himself in a good position. All right, I'm gonna go grab Jeremy and we'll bring him back for an interview.
Sounds good.